Great, nice to be here. I'm a bit afraid that the former speaker will soon send out a panda, so I will be like forced off stage. It's a pleasure to be here in Ålesund. My name is Maria Strömme. As he just said, I'm a professor of nanotechnology of Uppsala University, and I'm going to talk about nanotechnology today, and I'm going to show you why I am convinced that this technology will change everything for us. And as you will hear, I'm an optimist about the future. I am convinced that we have now created the tools that can help us create a sustainable future, both for ourselves and for our planet. But first, a little bit of a background about myself. I grew up in the north. I grew up in the north of Norway in a landscape quite similar to that you see outside here on the Lofoten Islands. And I must admit that during my formative years, I did not have very many nanotech thoughts in my head. The focus was then on optimizing the wax on my skis. You can probably see which decade I was born when you look at the clothes here. And the focus was also in catching as big cods as possible. But after I finished school, I moved to Sweden, and I became very much attracted to the old Swedish institutions, to Uppsala University, which is the oldest university in the Nordics, where I have my research group of 35 researchers, and also the Royal Academy of Engineering Science, of which I was the vice chairman until 1st of January this year. But I am trying to do new things also, not all this old stuff. And then I focus on materials and nanotechnology, because nanotechnology is all about materials and what we can do with them to give the materials the properties we would like them to have. And we have materials in everything around us. Our cars, or clothes, or medicines, or entire bodies are made out of materials. And the fundamental importance of materials is made totally clear from our namings of the ages of civilization, with each new era being brought about by the new material we started using. One can, of course, debate how sophisticated we humans have become during this development. I will now take you on a journey into this really small nano world. We have to zoom in considerably from our macroscopic length scale to come down to the nanoscale. So a salt crystal is a giant in the nano world. It's 1 million nanometers. And even the human cell is gigantic. It's between 20,000 and 100,000 nanometers. So we have to zoom in on small building blocks like HIV to come down to the nano world. HIV virus is 100 nanometers in diameter, and hemoglobin transporting oxygen in our blood is 10 nanometers, while the smallest building blocks in our DNA, the nitrogen bases, they are 1 nanometer. And it is here between 1 and 100 nanometers that we, the nanotechnologists, use our tools, because it is at this small length scale where all properties of materials are determined. Their color, their way of interacting with their human body, their ability to transport electricity and heat and so on. And if I take a little shortcut, since I have only 30 minutes, I can state that almost all nanotech projects in the world today, they are in one way or another focusing on solving some of the grand challenges that humanity are facing right now, those that will totally shape our lives in the future. And we very often use this year as a year to project our thoughts towards. We think that we need to have most problems solved until 2050. And this year is good. I mean, it's far enough away for us to feel that we have time, but it is also close enough so that many of us hope that we live at this year. And of course, we hope that our children live then. And these grand challenges, they include creating global sustainable energy systems, both when it comes to harvesting, storing, and transporting energy. And in this work, globally, the sun is very much in focus, since the sun is a super great energy source, and we are only using, I think, 2% of the energy we're using is coming from the sun. But we know that if we could just harvest 1 hour of sunshine on the Earth, it would be enough to actually give us all the electricity we need globally for 1 year. So therefore, there is much focus in finding better materials than the silicon materials we're using today in our solar cells, which is not very good at absorbing solar energy, of 20 to 30% or so. So many nano projects are focusing on finding materials where you need very small amounts of materials, but that are super efficient. I will not go into detail of these materials today, but I will continue a little bit more on energy sources now, because we're also trying to harvest energy from small objects like ourselves. Colleagues of mine showed last year that it was possible to make yarn batteries, or batteries that are thin as sewing threads, by twisted carbon nanotubes that you twist them around each other. And the way to charge this battery or this thread is just to stretch it, because when you stretch it, the charge is coming closer to each other. So it's a very easy way of charging the battery. So if you sew this yarn into a t-shirt, a tight t-shirt, like in this movie here, you can see that the battery is actually charged when this guy is breathing, when his chest is moving up and down. And they illustrated the usefulness of this battery in the t-shirt by letting it power a glucose sensor that could actually measure the sugar content in this guy's sweat, which is good for diabetes patients, and specifically parents who have children with diabetics, to be able to monitor them while they're out playing. Talking about sweat, we have also very recently shown that sweat can be used as a good power source. One can make patches, plaster in Norwegian, of fuel cells, nanostructured fuel cells that can actually use the lactic acid in our sweat as a fuel. And this was illustrated by letting a guy sitting on a spinning bike and spinning like crazy, sweating like crazy, and then he could actually charge his mobile phone. Of course, you can charge other things, and I think these two technologies are going to be interesting when we want our clothes to be part of Internet of Things and do different things. This seems to be like minor things to discuss on a conference, but sweat is actually a global energy problem. Only in the US, one are using the same amount to cool buildings for air condition as the entire energy consumption of Africa today. And we know that the need for energy for building cooling is increasing exponentially as Africa and India is developing their infrastructure. And this has led us to have asked the question if clothes in the future could be used for other things than clothes are used for today. Could we have clothes that cool our bodies so that we don't have to set down the temperature inside so much when we live in warm countries? And my colleague Yu Shui at the Stanford University, he showed that actually by making a nanoporous or nanostructure in the material polyethylene, the material that is in our environmentally friendly shopping bags, you can actually create a material that does not look or feel like plastic, it feels like cotton, and it actually transports away the heat from your body, so you can actually decrease your skin temperature by 4 degrees. And they made calculations showing that this would lead to quite a lot of savings in energy. And I actually presented this both to Stefan Persson and Carl-Johan Persson, the chairman and CEO of H&M, and they became very interested. So we will see if we will have clothes like this further on. Another grand challenge is the rapid urbanization that we are experiencing right now. Right now, 50% of the world's population live in cities. In 2050, as many as 75% of the world's population is expected to live in cities. And this, of course, puts a lot of requirement of new materials for infrastructures. We need stronger and lighter material. So specifically, we need lighter materials for vehicles so that we can save energy, so that they don't need so much fuel. And here is a list of the requirement of materials in future cars, and I'm not going to go through this list. The only reason why I show this list here today is so that I can comment on this fifth point. I was at a conference where the global head of research of the company HP, you know, the company making computers and printers, presented their new technology. And this presenter, he told us about their new 4D printing technologies. We all know what 3D printing is, but 4D printing, what is that? Well, if they want to print an aeroplane wing, they can make it in such a way that every volume element, which is called a voxel, can change shape depending on the pressure around the wing. So when the airplane is up in the air, you can have an airplane wing changing shape so that you can optimize the fuel that is needed all the time. And this they foresee to be a super interesting technologies for cars and for everything that we produce. You could have things that respond to the environment, could respond to your body, to temperature, to pressure, and change the way the material is acting. So whatever business you're in, I think you should pay attention to this development. It's going to change a lot of businesses. The grand challenge that I personally find most interesting to work with is about handling the demographic shift, or the fact that we get older now in a pace that we historically never have experienced before. And this graph here shows the expectations in the US. It basically shows that we're expecting very few young people to actually support for all the old people. And in Japan and in certain European countries in 2050, as much as 40% of the population is expected to be 60 years or older. And not everyone may be aware of the fact that we've already reached peak child on Earth, meaning that there won't be more children on Earth than the 1.9 billion children there is today. The population is growing, but it is we, the older, that part of the population is increasing right now. So I get this picture in my mind of what it will look like when I'm Saturday shopping in 2050. We will see something like this. You see, they have balloons just like outside. This is what we will see. We won't see as many young people as today. And when I see this picture and this graph here in the background, I realize that we are in urgent need to find solutions that can keep our bodies younger longer. Society and we will not be able to afford that we all should have fancy and expensive hip surgery or treatments for all age-related diseases such as cancer and Alzheimer's and all these diseases that are just exploding when we get older. So we need to find ways where an 80-year-old could have a body that is as young and functional as that of a 30, 40-year-old. And do I think that we will be able to do this? Yes, absolutely. It will take time. I'm not sure if we're there at 2050, but that's the goal. And nanotechnology can help with this in many different ways. It can help us find methods to cure cancer or other age-related diseases, and maybe more importantly, to diagnose diseases before we get sick, because then it's much less expensive than to have to go through advanced treatments. And most controversial is probably this statement here, that nanotechnology can actually make our bodies grow its own spare parts, replacing old and damaged tissue. And I will give examples of all of these now, and I will start with cancer. This picture here shows the absolutely most simple method to treat cancer using nanotechnology. And the inventor behind this technique is my colleague Naomi Hallas from the Rice University in the United States. It shows that if you have a cancer patient with a well-localized tumor, you can just inject empty gold nanoshells. So you don't have any drugs, it's just tiny, tiny nanoparticles of gold. You just inject it into the body of your patient, and you wait about 6 hours and let these nanoshells just go around in the body, because you rely on something that is called the enhanced permeability and retention effect, or you can just call it the leaking out effect. Where you have a tumor, everything is made really sloppy, everything grows fast, the blood vessels are also growing very fast, so their walls become very, very thin. So when something small passes through the blood vessels, they will leak out. So waiting long enough, you will have an accumulation of the gold shells exactly where the tumor is. And now I'm going to need a red laser pointer to illustrate how it works. So if the doctor then has waited long enough, he or she can take a red laser like this one and just direct it towards the point of the tumor, because Red laser light, as you can see here now when they were taking down the lights, red laser light goes straight through the human body. It does not heat up my finger, but it heats the gold nanoshells. So they get so warm. Thank you, you can turn the lights back. They get so warm, so they're actually burning the cancer cells to death. And this method has been proven effective for about 200 patients with prostate cancer and cancer in the neck and the throat region. And right now they're going into trials for testing it on lung cancer. And I talked to Naomi Hallas about a month ago, and she thinks that FDA will approve this method either later this year or next year. So the good news here is that you don't have any side effects. It's super efficient. You don't have any drugs. But it doesn't work if you have a cancer like this, if you have metastasis spread in your body. The leaking out effect will work. The gold nanoshells, they will be everywhere where you have the metastasis, but the doctor may not know exactly where to point the laser. He or she may miss some spots, and you need the heat. So what you can do instead is to just skip the laser, and then you fill your shells with an anti-cancer drug. The drug that is specific for the type of cancer that you have. And then you can rely on the leaking out effect of taking the drug to the right spot by just waiting long enough. And the smart thing with this is, well, one, you don't need gold. The only reason why you had gold was that it becomes warm when you shine a red laser on it. So you just need the shells to be really, really small so that they are leaking out. But the best thing with this technique is that you can give a cancer patient very, very strong drugs. The reason why you die from cancer today is very often the fact that you cannot give the patient as strong drugs or strong doses as required to kill the cancer cell because you get so many side effects due to the off-target tissue response of these drugs. This method has come even further than the gold shell method. You have 18 approved therapies on the market today using nano carriers to treat cancer, but cancer is about 260 different diseases, so we have some way to go before we have found nano treatments for all of them. But I think this brings on a lot of hope actually for the future. To be able to really keep an aging population younger, longer, and at a low cost, this is what we should realize. The fact that if we can diagnose diseases really early, the chance to survive is almost 100% for many diseases, not only the cancer types that I've listed here. And then it becomes cheap and good. But the question is, how can we detect the cancer before we have a tumor, before there is anything to take a biopsy of? Is that possible? Before we know we're sick, before we can see anything on an MR screen? That would be ideal. Screening cancer before anyone knows that we have cancer. And I believe that the answer to this question lies in our body's own nano-objects. The nanoparticles that are produced in all of your bodies sitting here right now all the time. The so-called exosomes. Exosomes are really, really tiny vesicles. They are 30 nanometer big, so it means that you can have more than 1,000 on the width of the human hair, so they're so small. And exosomes are then small vesicles that every cell in our bodies are spitting out all the time. And we discovered these exosomes in Sweden in 1977. And when we first discovered them, we thought that they were the garbage system or garbage bins of our cells. A smart way for our cells to just spit out unnecessary molecules that it didn't need. Soon we discovered that all types of cells in our bodies are spitting out these exosomes. Also tumor cells or cancer cells. And the next discovery was that wow, we have exosomes in all our body fluids, in our urine, blood, in saliva. And then it took a while. About 5 or 6 years ago, we realized that these exosomes, they contain a gold mine of information. They contain all necessary information from the mother cell. So if you have cancer cells in your body, you will have cancer cell exosomes in your spit, in your urine, in your blood, before the cells have built up a tumor. So if we can start to take samples from our spit, for example, once a year, and find these exosomes, we have a tool for super early diagnostics that we never have had before. One problem is, though, that they're so small, so they're really difficult to separate from larger objects that we have in our bodies, like red blood cells. So they're about 200 times smaller than red blood cells, and it's difficult to separate them. But the computer industry has helped us here. IBM has made a new technology for this. They've created a forest of nanowires that are structured in a way so that if you flush body fluid through this forest, you can make these small pillars in such a smart way so that the exosomes, they will be able to bend. But bigger things like red blood cells, they don't have a chance to bend. So exosomes are bending, red blood cells are just going straight ahead. So when you've flushed it through this pillar array, you have the exosomes separated from everything else, and then you can just stand with whatever analysis kit you have and do analysis of them. And during the last 3 years, several companies in the US have started to pop up developing exosome diagnostics. So I predict that soon we will have it here in Scandinavia, and we will maybe have it at home, so we suddenly have a tool to start screening ourselves very easily and cheap to see if, do I have cancer cells? And if you find that you have, well, start treatment before you get sick, because then treatment is easy, and your survival chance is almost 100%, and it doesn't cost much. So this is going to be super important. So what do I do myself when it comes to cancer treatment? Well, one thing I do is to develop materials that can help the pharmaceutical industry to create tablets for cancer medicine that we can swallow, so we don't have to inject cancer medicine. The reason why we inject cancer medicine today is that the drugs, they don't get dissolved in liquid, the liquid we have in our stomach, so they just go straight through. So what I wanted to do was to create a material with really small nanotunnels that I could force the drug into, so that the drug would have a shape or a form that the body could actually take up via the stomach. Everybody wants to take a pill instead of getting an injection. This is what I wanted to do when I started creating the material that was named Uppsalite, and the world press has written a lot about during the last couple of years. So basically, I've told this story on the Skavlan and on many international media as well, so I'm not going to tell the entire story here today, but basically we wanted to create a material with small tunnels of a certain material. We hadn't read the literature properly. We didn't know that people had tried for more than 100 years, and that there were articles from 1908, 1921, Russian PhD thesis from the 60s, proving that this material cannot be made. We hadn't seen these articles. We tried, we failed, until this guy, Johan, got sick. He got the flu on a Thursday. He was so sick of failing, so he didn't bother to call the rest of us and ask us to stop the synthesis that he has started on Thursday. So he didn't come to work on Friday, but when he came on Monday, he was ready to throw everything away because it had gone far too long. But then he saw, well, something yellow has popped up here. I need to dry this and analyze it. And then he found that, yes, finally we made the material we wanted to make. I didn't know then that this was the impossible material. I was just happy that we finally succeeded. But then we realized that, oh shit, when we started reading, we may have something that would be, so that we could prove researchers wrong, a research that had been continuing for 100 years. So we worked for 1 year, keeping our mouths shut until we were sure that we had this impossible nanomaterial, and we patented and published. And when we published, it was a crazy media storm. I was in my summer house in Lofoten, and I think I gave 200 interviews day and night during 1.5 weeks. And the hit on Google for the word Uppsalite went from 0 to 500,000 in 2 weeks. Media from all over the world wanted to talk to us, not because we had created a material that was interesting for drug delivery, but because we had realized when we analyzed the material that it broke the world record when it comes to sucking up moisture from air. And that was very interesting from many different applications, and we got a lot of suggestions of what to do, and we also started a company based on this. Right now, I'm working with the academic hospital in Uppsala to actually use this for cancer medication for small children, to be able to create personalized cancer doses that are safe, that also the parents can handle. I want to jump a little bit and say something about packaging, because I think this is where sustainability it shows how we can use nanotechnology to create a sustainable society. You all have probably thought about the fact that we get everything in perfect packaging. Somehow, our generation and the generation before us have required that everything should come in perfect packages. And I was worried when I was presented with the fact that in just 1 week, when I'm producing enough bottles of water in the US so that they can circle the planet 5 times, only in the US, only 1 week, only water. And then we get these type of pictures from the press reminding us that we have actually created islands as big as continents in our oceans of just plastic rubbish. So when I see this, I think that our children, they will be totally mad at us if this is what we leave behind for them. Just a lot of, here you are, this is the way we choose to live. We're just leaving a lot of plastic rubbish in the ocean. In 2050, there will be more plastics in the ocean than fish if it continues in this way. Doesn't seem like a smart way to go. We need to clean up, and we need to find other materials, biodegradable materials for our packaging. And I'm an optimist about the future. A sustainable material can be found in cellulose that we have quite a lot of, specifically in Sweden, but also in other Scandinavian countries, in Finland. Cellulose is produced by trees, by certain bacteria, and by algae. Maybe you don't know this chemical formula, but you all know cellulose. It's the paper you write on the diaper in your children's, the material in your children's diapers. So it's white, non-transparent, but with an easy nano-manipulation, one can actually have cellulose look like this, being transparent. So it's easy to make a biodegradable packaging material. But we want to do cooler stuff with it, not only replace something that is bad. So let's see what happens if we do another nano-manipulation. This is from my group. I did the absolutely most simple nano-manipulation you could think about. I put positive charges on the cellulose fibers, and here I put negative charges, and I borrowed some cells, skin cells, from my PhD students. They volunteered. And because I wanted to see what do the cells think about the cellulose. I mean, it's the same material. I just did a small nano manipulation. And here I can see that, wow, the cell, they hate the material. They crawl up. They don't want to have any contact with the material at all. And here, certainly, they just love it. They just, spread out. They want to have as much contact as possible. And when I saw this, I realized that, wow, we have a super cool tool to make smart wound care materials. We can determine how a scar should heal. Should the skin cells love or hate our patch? But we also know that bacteria are cells, so it's easy to make antibacterial packaging for food, helping us eat the food longer. But why stop there? We can also make batteries out of cellulose. This is the battery that I patented in 2008. It looks like a paper, but it is a cellulose-based battery that I can just charge in 5 seconds, and it can drive this thermometer in about 5 hours. So then why not let our entire milk package be a battery and drive a sensor that can tell us if the milk is sour or not? Or something smarter. And of course, can also help us avoid this development of lithium-ion batteries going on right now that needs graphite from China and cobalt from Congo, and help us create a more sustainable Internet of Things base. And we had big posters in the metro system in Stockholm about this project, because I've just transferred my patents to a big Swedish industry that are scaling them up right now. So finally, I want to say something about life science. I'm going to run over time, and I have a plane, so it's just my own, my own fault if you will give me 4 more minutes. So the question is, can we let our bodies become factories that can produce its own spare parts? In material science, the question sounds like this. Can we create instructive materials that can be injected into our bodies so that our bodies understand exactly what it should produce? Yes, we can. with all type of tissues, I believe, in the future. How far have we come now? Well, bone is the easiest to get our bodies to produce, to understand how it should produce. And here I have some surgery images from a dental surgeon at the Uppsala University Hospital. He had a patient, poor jawbone. He inserted a instructive nanomaterial, sent the patient home. Patient came back after 6 months. Then the patient had built his own jawbone, and this material was gone, and the screw could be fixed. Similar projects are going on for cartilage, for muscles, for heart. 2 people have gotten living new parts of heart after a heart attack at the Tokyo Women Hospital, and similar projects are also going on for brain. And the wish list is long. Diabetes patients, they want insulin-producing cells. What about people who are paralyzed? Can we get paralyzed people to walk again? Can we find ways so that the nerves above and below the damaged area so that they can grow together? They don't like to grow where there is scar tissue. So then we realized that if we can remove the scar tissue and put in a smart material, we could probably fix this. And my colleague Robert Langer in the US, he has created a nanostructured plug that can do this, and he has actually done surgery on 10 patients. The first one is Jordan and Jesse, totally paralyzed from waist and down, no motor function under the waist, cannot control bowel or bladder, and they posted the results on YouTube. So here in the middle, you can see Jordan after 4 months after surgery. Then he can start moving his legs, and he can also go to the toilet on his own. And here you can see Jordan 9 months after surgery. He's starting to be able to walk again. And Jesse 6 months after surgery. She cannot walk as well as Jordan, but she's getting there. And I think, ideally, I would have liked to end here, because this is what brings the most hope, and I think this is the coolest thing we have done with nanotech so far. But I just need to show you really nerdy, quick nano news before I end. It is nerdy, because last year we had the first Formula 1 or international Nanocar race ever. And here are the competing cars, the Nanocars. This is the first one made in 2005 by James Tour. And other cars came after. They're really, really small. You can have 500 of them on the width of a human hair. So this is how the race went. The competitors, they had to make their own racetrack by putting 5 gold atoms on a surface, and then they should go slalom through the atoms, and the first to reach the goal was the winner. And they had 48 hours of trying. This is what it looks like on race day. Everything happened in an electron microscope, of course. And I will show you the movie of the winner race here. Super exciting. Here comes the car, goes slalom between the gold atoms. You cannot see what is dust and what is gold. It looks the same, but it went really, really fast. And the winner was, to no one's surprise, James Tour's car. And they gave some extra prizes also, a persistent prize to the German car, because they fought day and night. They collided with dust, but they made it to the goal. And they also gave a fair play prize to the Toyota-sponsored car, because they had 2 big accidents, 2 crashes, really severe accidents. That was software crashes. So they jeopardized the competition for everybody else. So they actually withdrew, and that everybody thought was fair play. So this is what we researchers do. But I could tell you this is super difficult. These cars, they have engines, so you can actually steer them on the nanoscale. And in August, James Tour showed that he could actually rebuild this car and make a drill that could go into cancer cells and kill them. So he's predicting a new nano revolution where we're starting to build smart things like this in the future, not only for life science, but also for other types of application. I'm going to miss my plane now. So thank you. That is what I wanted to say.
Brilliant. Really great. Local knowledge is really important. What time is your plane?
Yeah, it's in 1 hour.
16:30?
Yes.
Plenty of time, right?
Fine.
Everybody's chill. Good? I'm dead serious.
Okay.
It's all chill.
I will hold you to it.
This is brilliant. This
Yeah.
is brilliant. And I've got loads of questions. I can't ask them all.
Okay.
And they're sending in questions, but I've got a
Shoot.
couple.
Yep.
Right?
Good.
Is there anything you can't do?
Yes, obviously.
Is there anything you can't do? I mean, this is like, you're playing God, aren't you?
No, but the thing is, I get the question, so which businesses will this affect? Well, do you have materials in your business? Everywhere where you have material, you don't have material in some type of IT communication. Well, you have material, you have devices.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, you have materials everywhere. So we are standing in front of a revolution that we cannot predict where it will take us. So, yes.
Another thing I'm a bit worried about is this, is the cost. You know, the human parts, spare parts for human bodies. That was amazing. You know, I'm starting to think already which parts should I start ordering, and
there is much more to
won't
tell
that
you.
create a kind of a superhuman as well? The people with the most resources and money can order the best parts, and aren't we? You know.
Technically, these instructive materials are not expensive to make, but like all medical devices, there will be companies that will be patenting them, and then they can put whatever cost they like on them. But they're not expensive per se to make, so there's nothing in the making that says that it should be costly. But of course, if you patent, you have your own rights, you can set the price you like. Superhuman, I don't know. I mean, we are putting spare parts in. I have a lot of metal screws in my back. We are putting spare other materials in our body. I think the superhuman thing will more be driven by AI development, where we start to integrate chip in our brains. So I just think this is going to benefit us.
And you said last quote, you said you're very optimistic, and this presentation makes us all feel really optimistic, doesn't it? It's like, wow, well, these amazing things are coming. It's so cool. Is there anything you're worried about? Anything that concerns you with all this?
Yes, it's. I mean, I didn't say anything about risks. When we produce nanomaterials, small nanoparticles, right now it's the chemical law REACH in EU that regulates everything, but that is not specifically designed for nanomaterials. So right now I'm a bit afraid that we will have materials on the market that show later that they're dangerous. I'm not afraid at all when it comes to medical materials, because there we have all these regulations. But in building materials, in clothes, where we don't have regulations yet, so I feel that there is an urgent need to really develop tools fast so that we can determine what should be allowed or not. Right now we are in an open window when dangerous things may come out.
That was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. You will make your plane. You've got lots of time.
Great.
Chill.
Great.
A big round of applause for Maria Strömme. Thank you so much. Thank you. Great.